Just while we're waiting for a few more attendees to log in, I want to welcome everybody to our Trees 101 Town Hall. Just a few housekeeping items for best sound quality. You're going to want to make sure that you select either English or Chinese at the bottom of your screen. Tonight we will have two presenters, and then at the end we'll do some Q&A, but you're welcome to start submitting Q&A at any point. And the Q&A you'll find also at the bottom of your screen. Please use the chat box to send us your Q&A so we can make sure we get them in a specific order. I want to be respectful of everybody's time, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We're really happy to be presenting this during Arbor Week. We have a ton of great content for you this week. We have our city arborist, Laura Hall, urban forester, and then our community development director, Isidro Figueroa, is going to be presenting today as well on some private trees, since we care equally about our private trees as we do our city-owned trees. We're going to go ahead and get started today first with a short presentation on some private tree removal updates and process. So I'd like to welcome Director Figueroa to do a presentation.
Thank you, Nicole. As Nicole said, my name is Isidro Figueroa. I'm the Community Development Director, and I'll be going through the private tree removal process. To begin with, you would complete a tree removal application, which you can retrieve from our online portal. I want to thank our Community Engagement Manager, Nicole, who has assisted us in revamping the application. It's a little bit more straightforward, so this should be easier for all applicants to fill out and submit online. You could also come into the public counter and we'll accept the application. The application has a fee of $415. The next step to that process would be for the city's urban forester to schedule a site visit to evaluate the trees, at which point a recommendation will be forwarded to me. As the director, I have the ability to either approve or deny an application or move that forward to the Planning Commission for review. Typically, most of these applications are handled in-house since there's not that much to it. A determination will be provided to the applicant. There will be notifications to the neighborhood and a 15-day tree posting requirement. Within this 15-day, any interested party can appeal that determination. Once that process has gone forward and through, a tree removal permit will be issued. Now, this is really important. The tree replacement requirement will be attached to the tree permit application approval. Prior to any applicant signing and acknowledging the requirement, the applicant should take notice of the requirement, and if the applicant deems that the property cannot contain the required replanting trees, the applicant has the ability to appeal to the director, at which point I will look at the application, I will look at the conditions of the property and determine, along with the assistance of the urban forester, whether the appeal has merit or not. I will make a determination if I deem that the appeal has merit and the property cannot contain all of the required replantings. Will provide the applicant with the tree mitigation, which typically requires a reduction of the tree replantings in order to ensure that there's some sort of mitigation to the loss, and also to make sure that we give those replantings the best possible opportunity to flourish. If the applicant at that point still is not satisfied with the director's determination, the applicant has the ability to appeal to the Planning Commission. And if the applicant is not satisfied with the Planning Commission determination, the applicant can also appeal to the City Council. If the applicant agrees with all conditions of the tree permit, then the applicant will secure an authorized tree removal company to do all the work. The applicant will then submit proof of the tree purchase and photos of the newly planted trees. Staff will go and confirm that the trees have been planted, and on occasion, staff will contact the applicant to monitor the health of the trees. One thing I would like to stress is that unless there's an emergency, for example, today we received a notification that there was a tree that collapsed. In that case, I have the ability to authorize a tree removal permit on the spot to ensure that the hazardous condition is removed. But in no case shall you or any applicant, any property owner or designee remove a tree without prior consent from the community development department. That's really important. I want to stress that the applicant homeowner should really not ask for forgiveness later on. It could be a costly venture. That completes the tree permit process. I'll hand it over to Nicole, and obviously staff will be available at the end of the presentation to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Figueroa. So I want to remind everybody, please, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A box at the bottom, and we can get to those in a timely manner at the end of the presentation. We're going to turn now to the star of Arbor Week, our urban forester, Laura Hall. If you're interested in everything, all trees related, Laura's a great person to know. She'll be giving a tree tour later on this week on Friday morning. If it's not raining, hopefully the weather will cooperate with us. Laura's going to be giving some overview over tree care, best trees to plant, and just kind of all things good to know if you love trees and you love San Marino. So Laura Hall, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. So just our framework for today, I wanted to kind of pull back and give some context as to why San Marino has these rules, and not just San Marino, but why do we care so much? Why do we care so much about trees? What does good tree care look like? Because sadly, I see a lot of bad tree care, and we would like to see better tree pruning, some better watering, and look towards a healthier urban forest for the future of our city and surrounding communities. Go to the next slide. Okay, so here's a beautiful shot of jacarandas in bloom on Monterey Road in our own city. So just very quick overview. Trees improve air quality, they cool the environment. I know it's hard to imagine needing to be cooler when it's been a pretty cold, wet winter, but in the summertime, the temperature under a tree can be 10 to 15 degrees cooler than just in the surrounding open, full sun. And that difference can make a huge difference in human health, in the health of your pets. It's very important for older people. 10 to 15 degrees is really significant. And it also, of course, right now we're very concerned about global warming. And we just had a great lesson in the power of trees for stormwater mitigation. This is my first wet winter in San Marino, and I got the chance to watch some of the water running down, I think it was Oak Knoll, just flooding down from the city of Pasadena side onto San Marino. There was so much water coming down the street, and a mature tree helps to intercept that water and can actually reduce the amount of flooding in areas with good tree cover. Of course, another reason we love trees is the benefits for wildlife. I just learned, I saw someone with a big camera with a giant telephoto lens, and I assumed that they were looking at birds, and indeed they were. And the gentleman told me that Lacey Park is a known hot spot for bird watching, that we have an amazing array of birds. And so I looked it up on this website, eBird, and we have 153 different species of birds that have been observed in Lacey Park. And one of the reasons Lacey Park is such a hot spot is, of course, we're not far from the Arroyo. There's sources of water nearby, but also because we have tall trees. And the tall trees are very important. You get birds like owls and hawks that like to perch up high so they can hunt, and they'll help us control rat and rodent problems because they like to perch up high in those trees. And it's just very pleasant to look at birds. And also birds have a wonderful role in eating insects. They can eat lots and lots and lots of bugs. So if you're like me and you don't like mosquitoes or other bugs, birds are our friends. There's also all this great research about why trees help people feel better. And I just wanted to include this slide. And at the end of my presentation, I've got some resource links. But the University of Washington has done great studies on how trees improve business districts. And they've shown that people will spend more money, want to spend more time in business districts with good tree cover. And people also just feel happier, and that puts them in a better headspace. And they did a great study showing that businesses in an area with lots of tree cover versus similar businesses in a similar area with fewer trees had great economic benefits. I don't want to read too much from the slides because it's all there. So here's a great picture of real-time, like current tree cover. So you can see in the city of San Marino, our canopy cover, I don't know what the 8 versus the 4 actually means. I think it's a percentage, but you can see our tree cover is literally double in San Marino area what it is just a few miles to the south of us in San Gabriel and Rosemead. And that means that our community is going to be cooler, again, in the summer, because we have so much more tree cover. And we're going to have better air quality because of the trees cleaning the air. And people that live in areas with more tree canopy have better mental health statistics. So one of the reasons we care so much about trees in San Marino, well, these are many of the reasons we care so much about trees in San Marino. And the reason that we work so hard on our city end, on our administrative end, is because we want to keep our city this way. We want to keep that canopy cover where it is for all of those benefits that I've just outlined. So one of the challenges to tree canopy cover has been bigger homes, increasing development. You know, people want to put in a pool or a garage or just build a bigger house. The city of Santa Monica did a really interesting study where they hired a company to do a canopy survey over a period of about 8 years. And they found that in that 8-year period, the city lost the total of about 27 acres of tree canopy cover. And they attributed a lot of that to construction of bigger homes and more homes. And it's a big problem that we're seeing regionally in Southern California. It's not just a San Marino thing, not just a Santa Monica thing, but we'd like to emphasize to just think ahead whenever you're thinking about building something new, or just in general, just want to spread the word, leave some room for trees. I worked in private landscaping and gardening for a long time, and it was a well-known thing in the gardening world that people would leave the landscaping to the last. They would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars remodeling their home and then say, hey, I've got $500 left for the landscape. You know, think about the landscape ahead of time. Think about the trees ahead of time, and then we can keep our community green and happy and healthy. So, you know, this is a relatively short presentation, and I can't tell you everything in one brief presentation, but we have these wonderful brochures that I've been spreading around town. You can find some at the library. I'm dropping some off at City Hall. And so the little image here is of some brochures from the International Society of Arboriculture, which is our certifying agency that certifies arborists. And so these are very good information pamphlets, all, backed by science. And so I've been spreading those around town. You can go pick some up at the library or City Hall later this week if you want. So when we're starting to think about trees and you want to plant a new tree, the mantra is always right tree, right place. Do you have a little teeny spot? Do you have an apartment with a pot on a balcony? Or do you have a big lot? Or is the only place where you could possibly plant a new tree under utilities? If you're going to be planting under utilities, you definitely want to plant something relatively small. What you don't want to do is plant a tree that's going to get really big and then later on go, oh no, this tree is getting too big and now I'm going to have to take it out or I'm going to have to prune it constantly. We all make those mistakes, but a little planning can prevent a lot of pain in the future. And there are so many cool trees. Whenever people ask me what tree should I plant, I'm like, where do I start? Let me give you a list of 30. One of the ways that you can improve your home and your landscaping, let's say you were going to do a remodel of the landscape or redesign your garden. You can plant trees strategically to cool and shade your home, or you can have trees that are deciduous. Deciduous trees lose their leaves in the winter. So deciduous trees are great to plant near a house because they will lose their leaves in the fall. You get more sunlight in the winter when you need more light and more warmth, and they shade the house in the summertime when you really need that extra shade. Of course, evergreen trees that don't lose their leaves are great for privacy, for year-round interest. It's always good to mix and think, what do I want? So these are just 3 photos that I took around San Marino so that you can see some very different trees. So there's the saucer magnolia, which are just finishing blooming here. Gorgeous, gorgeous trees, big showy flowers. The ginkgos in the fall are absolutely stunning. You'll see these on Allen. There's some other streets that have a lot of ginkgos, and they're just absolutely beautiful in the fall. And then we have our native oak trees, which have a really beautiful structure and provide a lot of habitat for wildlife and really provides significant deep shade on hot summer days as well. And so you might want to think about, do I want a tree that flowers? Do I want a tree that bears fruit? Do I want a tree for sipping lemonade under and just sitting and enjoying? And the website I included here, SelectTree, is a tree selection website. So you can go in there and you can type in the name of pretty much any tree you'd be able to find in a nursery in California, and it will tell you all sorts of information about that species of tree. How big it will get. They've got ratings for root intrusiveness, like how aggressive are the roots. They'll have all sorts of pictures of them. So it's a really great tree selection tool. And, the internet can be a black hole of information. I'm old enough that I was trained to always find resources that are backed up by research. And so a lot of the websites and resources I'm going to give you are places that come out of universities. And Cal Poly San Luis Obispo is the group that produces the SelectTree website. And it's just a really wonderful, useful tool. I myself could get lost in it just looking up trees and learning about trees I've never even heard of. And because we are in San Marino and we have both the Huntington Botanical Garden here within our city limits and Lacey Park, which has a pretty exotic wide tree palette. You can find things right here within the city limits of San Marino that are quite unusual. So one of the big questions I get is about water use, and should we be planting more trees in an era of drought? And the answer is absolutely yes. You should be planting trees. Probably less lawn, but more trees. And more trees versus hardscape. Actually, just having a concrete patio so that it's low maintenance is not a great environmental option because it actually increases heat, increases the urban heat island effect. And so there's ways to choose your landscaping and use very little water. So I just wanted to throw out some ideas of low water use trees. So the tree that we're going to be planting on Friday, for Arbor Day is a cork oak. So that's one of my top choices. It's a very low water use tree. It's from the Mediterranean. And there's also some smaller trees on this list. And then, so we have the Select Tree website to the side for tree selection. And then below that is a website with information from UC Davis on water use. And that, similar to the Select Tree website, has data on almost any landscape plant and its water use rating. Now you can go to the next slide. So, for example, I put in Canary Island pine. We have a lot of these around the city, several in the park here. And so it has a low water use rating. And what low water use means for a tree is generally that you're going to be watering it while it's getting established. And then after its first few years in the ground, as it's established, you might only be watering it 2 or 3 times a year. Yes, 2 or 3 times a year, not a week, not per month. That's literally how little water they need. They need a deep but infrequent watering. So here's a little image with ideas about how to water a new tree. You can see the man has a bucket. People often have trouble with imagining, like picturing in their head, how much water should I give a new tree? So a 5-gallon bucket can be an easy measuring tool. So for a small new tree, we might say 1 bucket once a week, and then maybe twice a week in the hottest summer weeks. And then as the tree gets a little bigger, maybe you're giving it 2 buckets of water once a week. And then as the tree gets a little bigger, you go to once a month. Because trees need deep but infrequent watering, a lot of our irrigation, the timer boxes will only allow you to do things by the week. More advanced systems will allow you to do it every other week or once a month. But this is the problem with a system that's set up really aimed at watering grass and watering lawns. Because trees don't need water on a weekly basis once they're established. It actually makes them grow a very limited, shallow root system if they're getting watered the same as the lawn. And this is something I'm very evangelical about. We want to promote proper tree pruning. There's a lot of bad tree pruning out there where people think that they need to prune the tree a lot to make it worth their while. I don't really know. I've put out these handbooks, this guide to tree pruning, both at City Hall and the library, because the little brochure has more information in it that I could adequately describe here. But basically that trees should be pruned so that you can walk under it, so that it has a good structure, so the branches are strong and can support themselves. Trees shouldn't be pruned just symbolically to be pruned. A favorite saying of mine is trees don't need to be pruned, people need trees to be pruned. You know, a tree in the forest doesn't need to be pruned. It doesn't help the tree's health. The only exception I would make is for things like apples and peaches. Some fruit trees need heavy pruning to produce good fruit. And that's just because we're directing the energy into the fruit. But in general, trees don't need to be heavily pruned. They need good structural pruning when they're young. And then we can taper off and only prune as needed as they mature. And in the city of San Marino, we also require that tree trimmers have a state tree trimming license, which is the C61, D49, and they should have a San Marino business license. And that's just, you should hire a licensed tree trimmer because of insurance reasons, but also they should have more experience and knowledge. Yeah. So young trees, I've seen houses here, I'll say, where a very young tree gets planted and a few weeks later, someone's cut off all the branches. And I'm not sure why. Because leaves are little solar panels and leaves make energy that is food for the tree. And so if you cut too much, and especially on a young tree, if you cut too much, you can stress it to the point that it will die. So if you look at the little teeny tree where it shows at planting, and then you look at the next tree where it says after 3 to 4 years, you can see that they've just taken off the very lowest branches as it's growing. They haven't taken them all off though, just a few of the lowest. And then in the next image, after 5 to 7 years, again, they've taken off some of the lower branches and it has a natural shape. So even when trees are young, they need their little branches in order to feed themselves. And that actually, little side branches and inside branches help tree branches develop good taper, meaning where the branch attaches to the trunk, it should be wider, and then the branch should taper out and get thinner. And trees that are improperly pruned and excessively thinned will have poor taper, meaning the branch is very long, but doesn't get narrower from the base out to the farther end of the branch. And that's actually a weakness. But ironically, a lot of tree trimmers do this intentionally. They don't know what they're doing. They don't understand the scientific repercussions of it, but year after year, if you overly thin out a tree and take out a lot of the inner branches, you will end up with branches that are actually weaker. So pruning badly can actually be harmful and create more risk. So it is invaluable to hire good, qualified, skilled tree trimmers and not over prune. Sadly, this is a tree I actually was able to take a photo of in San Marino. Again, I'm not quite sure what they were going for here, but every leaf was removed. All of the little side branches were removed, and it didn't respect the actual natural form of the tree. When you start pruning a tree, you should just start with the 3 Ds: dead, damaged, and diseased. I usually say start with the dead, damaged, and diseased, and then step back and do a light shaping and a cleanup, make it look nice, but then at a certain point, just stop. Sometimes I wonder if tree trimmers just are having fun up there and they won't stop. And that's how you end up with a tree like this one in the image that's just a few sticks. And topping is never a good tree practice. It can introduce entry points for disease. Topping is where you cut off the whole top of the tree or cut it almost flat. And it's a very dramatic type of cutting. Some trees can bounce back from it better than others. You can do things to a ficus tree that if you do the same thing to a liquid amber tree, it's going to die in 2 years. And I see it all the time. And then also the sad part is that people have paid for that. And I would like to save everyone money and help the trees. So don't pay for bad tree pruning. And tell your friends and neighbors as well to not pay for bad tree pruning. I know that the people that log on to something like this and show up for the tree town hall, you're probably the choir, and I'm preaching to the choir. But we want you to go forth, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, and spread the word about good tree care. Another thing that unfortunately I see a lot is mechanical damage on our trees. And mechanical damage happens from lawn care equipment most often, like string trimmers and lawnmowers. And you might not notice it at first. It might be really little. But what happens is that down the road, you end up with decay. And especially when a string trimmer is hitting a tree week after week, every time the gardener is there, that tree is never going to thrive. And, if you think about a tree as an investment, you paid money to have it planted. It's an investment in the future of the property. You're hoping it's going to be beautiful. Maybe you're hoping it's going to bear fruit. Maybe one day you want to put a hammock on it. This is just kind of thoughtless, the regular damage to the trees. A lot of people aren't aware of it. People say, well, I don't want weeds. But all you have to do is not let the machines touch the trunk. So, for example, here in Lacey Park, we just keep an area under the trees clear so that they're not hitting the trees with lawnmowers and maintenance equipment. And then you can also plant other plants under a tree so that instead of lawn, where it's being mowed every week, or a weed whacker, you can use low-growing plants as kind of a living ground cover to suppress weeds, hold in moisture, look beautiful, and then they also don't need to be mowed, so you avoid that mechanical damage problem. These are just 3 ideas, just 3 samples of plants that serve that purpose very well and are also very drought tolerant, and so they don't need watering all the time. For example, the Baccharis pileolaris, also known as coyote brush, low growing, easy maintenance, and you could probably get away with watering it once a month or even less. Very, very low water needs. Of course, one of my very favorite ways to prevent mechanical damage to trees, improve tree health, recycle wood chips, is just to use wood chip mulch. It really helps with weeds. If you get weeds growing in the mulch, it's easier to pull them because it makes a very soft soil. It keeps carbon in the soil because the wood chips are wood. They have a lot of carbon, and they're actually feeding the soil and improving soil health while suppressing weeds and holding moisture. When you put down mulch, you don't want it actually piled up, touching the trunk, because it does hold moisture, and it holds moisture very well. Having too much mulch up against the trunk can actually create decay over time if there's a lot of moisture built up there. And we have lots of mulch at Lacey Park, and we're thinking about finding a day where we can do a mulch giveaway. So stay tuned for that, because we keep all of the mulch here. And so one of my takeaways is just the mulch is a wonderful thing. It's very low cost. It conserves moisture. It protects tree roots from both cold and hot temperatures. People use mulch in very different climates as well, where it actually protects trees from freezing. Here, we're usually more concerned about heat and dry, but I really just can't say enough positive things about the power of just a very simple wood chip mulch for improving the health of our trees. And then here are just some basic resources, some of which I'd already put out there before, including the California Urban Forests Council, the Inland Urban Forest Council, which is our local organization that has great resources and information about forestry in Southern California, SelectTree with tree selection, University of Washington. Maybe you want to do more research on the social benefits of trees and how trees improve people's lives. It's all right there. So you can go forth and carry on and do more of your own research. And that's the end of my presentation. I'll
All
turn
right.
it back over to
Thanks so
Nicole for
much.
questions.
Gosh, trying to stop share for a second. Oh my gosh. So, thank you so much, everybody for attending. Thank you so much, Laura and Isidro, for those presentations. We do have a few questions in the chat so far. Some of the more extensive questions, we're going to type answers out to you directly. But the first question I have here is, when was the city's tree ordinance last amended? And I think that might be for Director Figueroa or Laura.
The ordinance was last amended in February of 2021.
Thank you. And I can actually answer this next question. Will this slide deck be made available on the city website for residents to view? It will, and we were recording tonight as well. So for all of you tree believers and your maybe non-tree believer friends who weren't able to join us tonight, you're going to be more than welcome to, by the end of this week, share the video, share Laura's great presentation, or refer back to it later on. And we will make the entire slide deck available by the end of this week. So that'll be great. And one more question. With all of the rain we had this winter, when do you think we need to start worrying about deep watering our trees again?
Oh, I love that question. That's a great question. So I'd say for established mature trees, you could probably wait a whole month. We just got many inches, like 5 to 7 inches of rain. It's going to take a while for the soil to dry out. So I think you could wait until early April to do a deep watering. So our rains this year bought us a lot of time. So hopefully I'm hoping that this is going to be an incredibly green, beautiful year. I see a lot of new growth happening here at the park. My own, orange trees at home are just starting to bloom. So the rain, caused some problems, but also we're looking forward to some wonderful benefits from it.
Thank you. I'm going to give just a few more moments for a few more questions. I do want to introduce, because joining us tonight, we do have our Parks and Public Works Director, Amber Shaw. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you kind of let Laura shine tonight, but you do play an important part in the care of our city trees, so thank you. We also have Acting City Manager Mario Rueda with us, as always. Thank you, Chief and City Manager, for being with us tonight. I have here, oh, this was very nice. Not a question, but just wanted to express my thanks. This is very informative presentation and I learned a lot. So thank you from Joyce. Another question here, probably best for Laura Hall as well. When is the appropriate time to trim trees in San Marino?
The best time to trim trees is during the cool season. So I'd say starting, if the weather cools down in October, starting in October through April. And I would really avoid any tree pruning June, July, and August. It's so hot. You can trim palms. Palms are fine. And very light tree pruning really anytime. But you want to be very careful in the hottest months. And it's not just heat, it's actually the day length. So June, even though that's not one of our hotter months, the days are really long. So the number of hours of light are increased. And so trees can actually sunburn. And so if you open trees up or trim too much in those times where it's both hot, but also the days are long, trees can sunburn and they need sunscreen, but their leaves are their own natural sunscreen.
I learn something new every time I talk to you, Laura. Well, I will give a few more minutes for any more questions. Just a reminder, please use the Q&A box at the bottom. I have a question. So I'm going to be joining the tree tour if we have it on Friday, fingers crossed. How many different trees can I look forward to seeing in Lacey Park?
I was like, I have to look at I have these handy dandy old, I don't know if you can see this. We have these old, they're about 10 years old. Someone made these brochures of the guide to the trees of Lacey Park. And on here, we have 125 trees. Yes, so as of 2011, there were 125 different species. One day when I have free time, I don't know when that'll ever happen, but I'd love to update this. But yeah, we're planting some new ones also on Friday. So hopefully it looks right now, looks like it might rain a bit in the morning, but it's only like 40–50%. So fingers crossed we'll be able to go on. We can always set up a tent for the tree planting.
All right. Well, I don't have any more questions. I do just want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Thank you, city staff, for lending your time, and thank you all of our wonderful tree friends in San Marino for joining us. If you have any further questions, you can always email city manager office at cityofsanmarino.org. We'd be happy to farm out any of your questions along to anybody that or direct them to anywhere they need to go. We're always just really appreciative of everybody coming out. Oh, wait, I just got okay, hang on. 2 more questions before we go. Does the city maintain records on when some of the large older trees in Lacey were planted?
I would have to
I've been working. Oh,
Director Figueroa?
Okay.
No, go ahead, Laura. I was going to say I would have to do research on that.
Well, actually, I've been talking to some of the ladies at the Historical Society, and they've been giving me great resources. Somewhere here, I have some information about trees that were planted, but we don't have complete documents. I have a feeling that if I went through all the files here in my office and at the Thurner House, where the Historical Society is based, we could find it. But I've already started talking to the Historical Society, just so I can learn more about this place and this park and some of the history here. They're very excited to share things with me. So we have some records, but it's incomplete and it's not well organized is really my best answer.
Well, maybe some of our tree friends can help volunteer and help you get through all those records one day. One more question, which I think I have the answer to, but Laura, I will let you answer. Will there be more tree tours in the future?
So we have this one scheduled Friday, which hopefully will not get rained out. But we also, if you check the community services catalog that the recreation department puts out, we have a tree tour coming up, organized through rec. And we have some other programming. Right now, I've agreed to do like quarterly programs with the recreation department. So a tree walk, some other classes and workshops. Yeah, we'll see what the turnout is both Friday and for the one, I believe in April with rec. And that's on the recreation department's website. I don't off the top of my head remember what day it is, but it's in April. And yeah, we can always do more.
And one more, although this kind of I think goes along with the answer you just gave, but any possibility of offering a beginner's bird watching class at Lacey Park? I think we'd have to talk to recreation about that, but it sounds like a possibility.
Well, recreation, I know just when I first started here, they had someone from, I think, Pasadena Audubon doing a tree walk and guiding a bird watching. And I think they have him coming back. I don't know when, and I don't think we have anyone from rec on here, but I know that they said they usually do it at least once a year, that it's very popular. So again, keep your eyes peeled for that recreation community services brochure.
All right, that's all the questions that I have. Thank you again, city staff. Thank you to our interpreter who's also on. She's usually our silent partner unless you're on the Chinese channel, but Yanan, thank you for joining us as well to provide the interpretation. The recording will be up and available by the end of this week. So thank you guys. And I hope you were able to share this information with everybody and keep our love of trees alive in the city. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you, Laura. Great job.